really the case that the Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister are currently in the same hotel, making sure that they're not in the same room, dining room, restaurant, breakfast table at any point?
Can you imagine being in that hotel and doing everything you can to avoid being in each other's company? Look, the truth is, I've been in these situations with Prime Ministers over the years.
Yeah, but you normally want to find them, talk to them.
God, the last thing I want to do is to hang out with the Prime Minister. No,
yeah,
seriously,
get a line
it is
from them.
very, very easy to assume this is two people trying to avoid each other. The reality is the Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister have completely different schedules on a day-to-day basis in a country like America where they've got official duties. They're not trying to steer clear of each other. The fact is they have no relationship, none whatsoever. Why would they want to spend any time with each other?
I hesitate to correct a man of your eminence in this area, but of course they try to stay away from each other. They absolutely detest each other. And this is the reason why. And we need to get into the weeds of what this dispute actually comes down to. The reason Boris Johnson has gone to the wire this week on this is that Theresa May is about to go to Florence and make this major speech about Brexit. And he got wind that she was moving in her head more, along with Philip Hammond and a few others in the cabinet, more towards us having a Switzerland-style post-Brexit scenario where we would be outside the EU, but we would pay tens, hundreds of millions, billions of pounds, potentially, euros, for permanent access to the single market.
It's known as pay to play.
Pay to play. So that is the Swiss model, right? And he got wind of this, and he wants the more Canadian-style free trade deal instead, where we are genuinely outside the European single market, and we have free trade with Europe and with the rest of the world on our own trade deals. That is the nub of this debate, right?
It is, and he felt completely isolated because he wasn't being consulted, and he is the Foreign Secretary. So he threw his toys out of the pram. The pram, that's what he did.
But
he
if
wrote
you
his
believe
4,200 words.
OK, let's play devil's advocate again. A strong Prime Minister we discussed yesterday would have fired him straight away for insubordinates, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is the biggest decision this country's made in my lifetime. And what Boris Johnson clearly, passionately believes in, and has from the start, is a complete break from the European Union. If it's right, George, that the Prime Minister was basically angling to move us towards still really being part of the European Union
and paying
through the back door and paying for it, as Boris argues, and I think he's got a legitimate argument from his perspective, that's not what the referendum was about.
He has got a legitimate argument, of course he has, but the fact is he is in a cabinet, which is a collective group of people.
I've never agreed with that anyway.
When you are in cabinet...
Why should it be collective responsibility?
Because those are the rules of the game, and if you don't
why don't you change the rules?
And then you don't like it, you have to leave the government if you don't want to be part of the government. That's what collective responsibility is.
Why should we have a government?
I'm not saying he should, but the rules are, if you are in the cabinet, you stick by what the Prime Minister decided.
I get it, but my argument about collective responsibility is I've never understood that. They clearly don't all agree. What is wrong with having a robust public debate where cabinet ministers disagree with each other and indeed the Prime Minister, and at the end of it you have a consensus?
Because the referendum,
but that's what collective...
because the one-issue referendum on the EU absolutely torpedoed collective responsibility, because the Conservative Party did not campaign on a united manifesto on this one particular issue. They don't agree. We've got to remain Prime Minister, we've got to remain Chancellor, we've got to leave Foreign Secretary and head.
And by the way, we've got a Labour Party who are similarly split and have no idea where they are on it either. Right. So the whole nation is split on it.
They suspended collective responsibility for the referendum when you had 6 cabinet ministers speaking against Cameron, going the other way. I have a huge amount of sympathy that politicians should be more honest and open and discuss differences instead of pretending all to agree when they don't. But your problem here is you're going to send negotiators with the other 27 countries, and if you've got them all saying different things, you're going to get... They're going to divide and rule.
Let me repeat a point I made yesterday, which was, in a way, couldn't this also be helpful? Because Boris is presenting a slightly apocalyptic position as far as the EU are concerned, where we literally go bang and gone. If they think that there is a real movement in the government, and it's got support, as it clearly has by a number of people in the cabinet, that we may do that, Doesn't that actually, in a weird way, strengthen our negotiating
absolutely not.
position?
What it does is it makes the European side think, fantastic, they are split, they are all over the place.
Does
we
it?
will just sit here. And we can see it happening, Piers, right now. We can see the Europeans sitting there on their hands, not advancing talks in a meaningful way. And do you know who the people who are really bothered by this, apart from the people who are watching us this morning, who work for the companies in this country, it's the companies in this country who are saying, we don't know what's happening here.